Good evening, dear students. Today I'll be talking about the remaining part of the peritoneum. In the first presentation, we have talked about the generalized concepts. So now, quickly, let's review what we have learned in our previous session. There are few facts about peritoneum. If I'm asked to define a peritoneum, it's a serous membrane which lines the organs and the abdominal cavity, its walls. Then this peritoneum has different parts and they are termed as the parietal peritoneum, visceral peritoneum and peritoneal cavity. These are the parts of my peritoneum. And then within the peritoneum we have learned about certain terms, and these terms were mesentery, omenta and peritoneal ligaments. So what is a mesentery? We learned that the parietal peritoneum, the layer of the peritoneum which extends from posterior wall, that becomes an an organ, that was called a mesentery. And now this mesentery can be a mesentery proper. Mesentery proper is the term used for the mesentery which holds my jejunum and ileum. Transverse mesocolon is that mesentery through which my transverse colon hangs transversely in my abdomen, and mesoappendix is the mesentery of my appendix. Then the second term we learned was omenta, and this omenta was those folds of peritoneum which was extending from stomach to other organs. And under this cover we talk about greater omentum and lesser omentum. And then lastly we talk about peritoneal ligaments, and primarily for the peritoneal ligaments we said these are the folds which are extending from the anterior abdominal wall or between organ and organ. So examples of these ligaments are the same folds, they were given different names in different locations. So the ligaments, under the category of ligaments, we have learned about hepatogastric ligament, hepaticoduodenal ligament, gastrophrenic ligament, gastrosplenic ligament, splenorenal ligament, and gastrocolic ligaments. Well, the peritoneum is being divided into two broad concepts: lesser sac or omental bursa, greater sac. And greater sac, we have learned that it has been divided by transverse mesocolon into a supracolic compartment and an infracolic compartment. The functions: primarily protection of the abdominal organs, connect organs with each other, maintain the position of the organs by suspending them with the ligaments, and then it prevents frictions while organs moves. And the clinical relations: peritoneum, the associated issues with that, ascites, we talk about that, peritonitis, inflammatory condition, we talked about that. Now, we all know gut develops as a tube, and this tube has parts: foregut, midgut and hindgut. This concept was reviewed in detail, was explained in detail in the developmental lectures. I'm just taking a chunk of that which can help me to understand some of the important things. We all know that this tube undergoes different modification, and right now I'm focusing on stomach. You can see how the stomach, it balloons up, part of the gut tube, and the proximal part, foregut. And now we know that the foregut part of mine have two mesenteries, one which is present anteriorly and one which is present posteriorly. Anterior one we call it ventral mesentery, and posterior one we call it dorsal mesentery. Ventral mesentery is the one which connects the tube with the anterior abdominal wall, and dorsal mesentery is the one which connects the tube with the posterior abdominal wall. But this mesentery, this pattern is only specific for foregut. For midgut and hindgut, we don't have ventral mesentery. We only have dorsal mesentery. Now, as I said about that, you can see very clearly, this is the whole tube. It's not straight. Look at it. It's under the process of folding. Look at it. These are my different organs which has been growing within this. And this is the stomach where you can see some dilatation. This is the dorsal mesentery and this is the ventral mesentery. And look, it finishes at certain level. And beyond that, we don't have any ventral mesentery. We only have dorsal mesentery. And if you can see very clearly, the part of the gut, which is foregut, its artery is celiac trunk. And the part of the midgut, its artery is superior mesenteric artery. And the hindgut, its artery is inferior mesenteric artery. So this is how these arteries are responsible to supply all the structures, all the organs who develop from these part of the intestine or gut. Are we clear? Now, this gut tube, it undergoes certain rotations, and this rotation concept has been explained to you. But what you can see worth mentioning here, that this is where you are looking at the stomach, and this is we are in which region? Foregut region. In the ventral mesentery, what we can see that liver grows in my ventral mesentery, and the spleen grows in my dorsal mesentery, and this is what? Aorta, and from there we have the artery of my foregut, and that is a celiac trunk. Are we clear? Now we can see there is rotation occurring. So this rotation has been explained in detail why and what is happening. So now the same concept. You can see that we are in the foregut because we can see this is the posterior, this is the anterior. So we can see here the dorsal mesentery and the ventral mesentery and how it has been surrounding the whole thing. So when this peritoneum comes to the organ, we call it, this green is the visceral and this orange is the parietal layer. And this reddish thing is the organs or the gut tube, which has been modified into different structures. Now there is a rotation of the stomach, and because of this rotation, can you see that these folds has been created? If we can focus on that, these fold has been enlarging because my stomach is moving. So behind the stomach, we are creating a space there, and look at it. There, what are we making? The spleen, we talk about it, it develops in my dorsal mesentery, and liver develops in my ventral mesentery. Same concept continues further, and now we are in the midgut or hindgut region. Because why I'm saying that? Because I don't see any ventral mesentery here. Are we good so far? Perfect. So now, this image demonstrates what we were seeing before. This is anterior abdominal wall. This is my ventral mesentery, and this part we name it as the falciform ligament, and look at it, the liver. And then this is my from the liver to the stomach, and this is my lesser omentum, and liver grows here, and behind it we have the dorsal mesentery, and this is the spleen, and look at it, it folds on itself. The stomach goes under rotation, it dilates, and then it goes under rotation. As a rotation, can you see there is something is being formed behind? We can see in this image which it has become more clearer. So now as a result of that, we can see there is something, some pouch like stuff has been created. There is an entrance inside, and that is my entrance of the epiploic foramina. It is in making. So this is how it develops here. Now, the same concept in vertical way. So you can see that this is how the liver in the ventral part and the dorsal mesentery is being shown up here, and you can see how it is being disposed across the whole sagittal plane. And look, this is from the liver to the stomach. What we call it? Lesser omentum. And from the stomach hanging downwards is the greater omentum. Where is the lesser sac and greater sac? I'm not talking about that at the moment. This whole thing is the greater sac. And once it folds on itself, there we can see there will be the lesser sac. Are we good? So you can see that how the peritoneum, its layers have been coming down, and they are just surrounding these different organs. And look at it. Now see this greater omentum is hanging downwards. It increases in length. It goes close to my visceral peritoneum, which is covering my transverse colon. And now as it grows down, you can see that it becomes like an apron. And now what happened? These inner two layers, they fuse, and these two layers, they fuse. Are we good with this? So now see it again. My liver, my stomach, lesser omentum, and then the greater omentum. And look at it. These are the different organs: the pancreas, transverse colon, transverse mesocolon, and as we have talked in the previous slide, these layers, they adhere with each other. And then we have one complete sheet, and that we call it as greater omentum. And this is the lesser omentum. And this is the lesser sac, which becomes my, lesser omentum. Lesser sac and greater sac. Don't mix with the lesser omentum with greater omentum. Omentums are the connections, and sacs are the spaces. So now, let's come back to this section, this sagittal section, where you can see all the organs has been placed. Now, anti-abdominal wall, diaphragm, pubic symphysis, stomach, transverse colon, urinary bladder, rectum. And this is my aorta. Look at its different branches at different levels. And that's my celiac trunk, the artery of the foregut. And what are these? This is my pancreas. And this is what? Superior mesenteric artery. And who's this? Duodenum. Excellent. Now look at it. My peritoneum, parietal layer, visceral layer. It goes all the way, comes down. And we can see that how this parietal becomes visceral, visceral goes parietal. So this is the orientation, and this is what my peritoneal cavity. And these are the mesenteries, mesentery proper. And these are the loops of the intestine. Below are the ileum, above are the jejunum. And then what is that? A space between my rectum and the urinary bladder. We call it vesico. The word vesico is for urinary bladder. Vesico, what is that? Rectum. So rectovesical pouch or vesicorectal pouch. So rectovesical pouch. If this is a female example, we could have called it vesicouterine pouch and rectouterine pouch. That is more famous with the name of pouch of Douglas in females. Are we good so far? So now this whole thing, can you map this color? This whole thing is my greater sac. And then this behind part is my lesser sac. We talk about that these layers, they fuse, inner two layers they fuse, and they give us one complete structure that we call it as greater omentum. And this is my lesser omentum from the liver to the stomach. And we have certain vessels and structures here. And this one is my greater omentum. I hope we are clear about that. So now this one we call it as gastrocolic ligament. You can see that superior mesenteric artery, it runs in this mesentery to reach to the transverse colon and supplies there. And middle colic artery is being shown, which is running in this fold. And this is the main bare area of the liver. Why this is called bare? Because it's not covered by peritoneum. It is in direct connection with the diaphragm. So it has no peritoneum which covers this part of the peritoneum. So let's break here.